You know the feeling. A specific trigger hits, a comment from a coworker, a sudden change of plans, and you snap. You behave in a way that feels completely out of character, and immediately after, you feel frustrated with yourself. These reactions are the predictable output of an inherited operating system, a set of invisible cognitive rules written by your environment and past experiences, executing without your active consent. To regain control, we have to stop treating the self as a fixed trait you simply have to live with. Instead, we must treat our internal belief structures as designable technologies that can be examined, dismantled, and deliberately rebuilt. We are going to map your architecture right now. Grab a piece of paper and draw a line straight down the middle. Think of one specific, recurring frustration or reactive habit you want to change. Keep it in the front of your mind. Recognizing that you are operating inside this invisible machinery is the mandatory first step. It is how you stop living at the mercy of inherited reflexes and begin acting as the conscious author of your own choices. At the top left of your paper, write down that specific reactive habit. Keep it brief. Traditionally, we try to solve behavioral problems using our intelligence quotient, or IQ. IQ is highly effective at finding solutions within a given framework, but applying IQ to a behavioral trigger traps you into fighting the symptom. You try to use sheer willpower to force a different outcome, while remaining completely blind to the underlying rules dictating your behavior. To actually change the behavior, we have to apply the awareness quotient, or AQ. AQ measures your capacity to step back, observe the entire map, and alter the framework itself. Look at what you wrote on the left side of your paper. Right below it, write down the exact trigger that sets off the habit. Do this objectively, without judgment. Acknowledge that your reaction to this event is simply your internal model of the situation, not an objective truth about reality. Putting the trigger into words creates a gap between your experience and your reaction. It transforms a visceral internal sensation into an external object you can observe. Once it sits on the page, the trigger stops being a fixed reality and becomes a piece of data, a specific model that can now be audited. We will audit that data point using the 7-layer model of the self. This gives us a structured method to drill down through your cognitive architecture, layer by layer, until we find the faulty, load-bearing belief supporting your reaction. Start near the top, at the interpretation layer. Ask yourself, what is the specific, subjective lens through which you are viewing this trigger? How are you framing the event to make it feel like a threat? Now move deeper into the identity and value layers. What internal narrative does this trigger disrupt? Does it threaten your need to be seen as competent, or challenge a rigid standard like perfectionism? Finally, drill all the way down to the foundational reality layer. What is the ultimate assumption you are making here? You might find an inherited fear, perhaps the belief that your worth is strictly tied to external validation, or that mistakes are fatal. Look at the foundation you just uncovered. When you trace the logic upward from that specific fear, your reactive habit makes perfect sense. The system is functioning exactly as designed. The problem is simply that it is running on bad code. It is time to write better code. Move over to the right side of your paper. For this step, we are focusing strictly on redesigning your internal lens. We are not trying to change the external trigger or the people around you. We begin at the bottom. Write down a new foundational premise for your reality layer. Instead of fear, anchor it to a conscious choice. For example, you might decide that what you value most in this situation is the pursuit of knowledge, or maintaining your own clarity. Let that new foundation cascade upward. If your reality is rooted in learning, that dictates a new value. That new value forces a completely different interpretation of the trigger. A critique from a coworker now arrives at a filter of pursuing knowledge, transforming a potential insult into actionable data for your chosen growth. This new, coherent internal structure logically outputs a new behavior at the action layer. You establish a clear, non-reactive rule for how you will proceed the next time the trigger occurs. Notice that we did not rely on willpower. Willpower is fighting your own architecture. Lasting behavioral change is the result of structural coherence, where your actions are firmly anchored to a set of principles you actively designed. You now have a complete framework architecture map in front of you. You have successfully taken your internal, invisible terrain and externalized it onto the page. This specific process, recognizing, analyzing, and deliberately reconstructing your internal maps, is called framework literacy. AI models have already reached a threshold of hyperfluency, solving PhD-level reasoning tests with nearly 92% accuracy. They possess IQ in a box. But while a machine can generate a conclusion, it cannot witness the framework it uses to get there. The ability to step outside of your own mental architecture and intentionally redesign it is a capacity grounded in awareness, not just computation. When answers are automated and frictionless, your ultimate value lies in the sovereignty of your own intent. It is your capacity to construct meaning, define your values, and consciously steer your path through the physical world. Keep your maps somewhere you can see it. The next time you face that specific trigger, do not fall back into the inherited script. Step deliberately into the architecture you just built. Defending your agency means you can no longer accept the passive role of reacting to the environment around you. It requires you to accept the responsibility of being the architect of your own mind.